Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Play It by Ear podcast. I am Carrie, your host, and here with my co-host is Joanna. Say hello.
Hi, everyone.
So we are heading towards this is the second last episode of Opus 3, and we've got something very, very exciting in store for you, so do stick around until the end.
Yes.
But before we get there, we have some interesting things to talk about between the two of us, I think. Because we started this season off with a question whether or not we can compose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So today I think we're going to start our discussion off with what were some things we learned in school about composition that we were told not to do,
Yeah.
but still often hear.
Yes. Great.
So for me, I remember only two things really.
Okay.
So fill in the gaps
Sure.
wherever possible.
Sure.
I remember that we're taught not to do parallel fifths and octaves.
Yep.
Unfortunately, those are personal favorites of mine, I have
Yep.
to say. And like whenever I hear them in movie scores, I kind of get this like chills. It sounds good. I like those.
It has a very open sound to them.
Yeah.
For those of you guys who may not know what we're talking about a succession of chords in which there is a perfect fifth, the interval of a perfect fifth in one chord, and in the next chord, it's like it's moving like upward or downward. Those two notes are moving parallel to each other, so it's going from an open fifth, and they call it an open fifth because it sounds very open. It doesn't sound very filled out, and you're moving from a perfect fifth interval to another perfect fifth interval in another chord, and that tends to have a very like open, hollow sound to it. I would say. And so a lot of Western music as it developed wanted to have a more filled out sound. So that became sort of like a harmony faux pas, if you will. But I have to agree, I freaking love parallel fifths and parallel octaves. Like, you can do this for fifths and octaves.
Yeah.
It sounds really like, not creepy, but like ancient, you know?
Yeah, and I think with different sorts of support from the bass
Yeah.
registers, I think, or the upper registers, there it I don't know, I feel like it just gives it this suspenseful feeling in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
driving the music forward still, but in a very different manner where like if you had like chords that were filled out, da da da
Right.
da da, something like that, it
Right.
would yes, of course the music's still moving forward, but if you had
Right.
just the hollow sounding kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next?
It's the same chills that you feel when people sing in unison or they sing in octaves
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it has a very it's like a lot of tension to that
yeah,
sound.
yeah, exactly.
And I I also really like it. So, um I heard a similar thing too. It's I forget the exact name of uh this video game, but like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't play the video game myself. I've only it sings Ars Tonalico, something like that. You guys can look it up. Has some really crazy sounding music because I believe the setting of it is like based in the far future, but
Oh,
it has like almost like a ain't if you mixed up ancient and like psychedelic sounds at the same time. So their music the music like kind of echoes that medieval sound and has a lot of the like parallel fits
mm.
movement, and it sounds so good. And there's like a whole they made up a whole language just for this video game, like a whole spoken language, so it has that kind of like to your ears because it's almost like listening to Latin,
Mm.
but it's not Latin. It's a whole nother like it's a whole nother language that they made
Mm-hmm.
up for the game. And ooh, it sounds so good. Like it definitely evokes like an ancient feel to it, you know? And I feel like if composers want to evoke that feeling, they can look back at, like, essentially that's how, you know, a lot of Gregorian chant was sung, like in the medieval, right? I think it's medieval era. So, you know, like they might be faux pas in like, I guess, current, like harmony theory, but you can actually use it creatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that also apply to the Renaissance period as well too, where you hear more of the
Yeah.
open chords?
Yeah. I think it's Renaissance and medieval
Yeah,
is
because
where you hear a lot of the open
I
chords.
take to the Renaissance music a lot as well too.
Oh, yeah. And also like Renaissance music has really good like low reed stuff.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
dance suites that you hear,
Yeah.
they're good. They're something.
It like the sound of reeds, especially low reeds, lends themselves so well to that like open sound.
Hmm.
Ugh, it's so good. Uh, like it's really only that particular era of music that has music that sounds like that. So
Yeah, well, I mean, arguably every era of music is defined by kind of a set
yeah,
sort of characteristic in there.
exactly. Yeah, but oh, it's really great to hear that kind of callback in video games because a lot of video games are based on like far past, you know, times or far future. So, especially the video games that are based on like old Europe or like old, you know, like they're based around like that type of like time period. It might be fantasy, but it is based on that time period. They harken back a lot of the times to this kind of sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's really clear, like when you listen to like a lot of video game music, it's clear. You can literally hear the music history classes in the music. Like you can hear it because you're like, ah, yes, this composer clearly went to school. You know, like you know, like, and like if you have also like, you know, learned this type of stuff in music history classes, you immediately pick up on it. It's like, ah, yes, he's calling back to whatever time, etc., which breaks all the current rules, but you know, it evokes a certain time period just from the way it sounds.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like with modern music now, I've seen compositions where it's just graphic.
Yeah.
And where are the rules then?
Yeah. I
How would you read that? Go like, woo.
This is an interesting topic because I actually just got paid to play crazy music.
Oh.
And it was, a lot of it was instructions on the types of things you can do. And then the notation was just a lot of like squiggles and lines, you know? And we had to have a Zoom meeting about like what the composer, what he wanted me like to evoke, like what feelings he wanted me to evoke, you know, and we talked about the specific techniques and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely broke all the rules. A great rule that he broke is the tritone. So the tritone, this was a rule, I guess it was more so a rule in like medieval times. You really could not use this interval, which is an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth is the same exact interval.
Was it thought of as evil?
Yeah, it's called the devil's interval, or the devil in music, Diablo in Musica, right? I think it's that. And because it's just so grating to the ear, and it's it just, oh, you know what I mean? Like if you play it, yeah, it really has that compared to all of the other intervals. All the other intervals sound really nice by comparison, but the tritone is just like awful. And this composer, asked me to figure out the multiphonic fingerings for a tritone. It's possible to do it, but it's really hard because it is a tritone. So to have a naturally occurring tritone, essentially, because that's what, like, it's essentially multiphonics is when you're playing multiple harmonics at the same time, right? So to have a naturally occurring tritone is actually really difficult as well. So I had to look up a few fingerings online to figure this out. And you have to like blow at a very certain angle for like the notes to come out, and it doesn't always come out because it's not it's really hard for that particular two notes to want to be played together, you know. But yeah, he wanted me to do there are a lot of tritones, there are multiphonic tritones in there, and then I think at one point I was essentially singing a tritone under me trilling on a note where one of the notes of the trill would create a tritone.
Wow.
So like it's yeah, definitely that definitely breaks the rule, is using lots and lots and lots of tritones without necessarily resolving them, because you can use tritones if you resolve it correctly. We didn't resolve them.
No resolution.
In fact,
continue.
Yeah, in fact, like there's a whole part of it that I needed to improvise. So I just straight up used this tritone and improvised on this tritone the entire time.
I applaud you.
But yeah, that is, you know, you're supposed to resolve the tritone, but I just improvised on it. Yeah.
Breaking the rule and taking it further.
Yes. Like that is essentially the point of that particular piece. I can talk about it on my own channel sometime, you know, sometime in the future. But that's kind of the gist of it. Like I can't talk too much more about it, but it's pretty interesting. Like the fact that, you know, we're at a point in time now where you can take a tritone and make that the crux of the music instead of something that you have to resolve out of, you know, is pretty fun.
Well, I mean, this was a good introduction to that. So when you post it, everybody go have a watch and listen and see what that's all about.
It's I'm actually a little bit nervous about posting it because I look like a freak and I sound like a freak doing it. But
well, I mean, tritone, it's based on a tritone, so
yeah,
you're embodying that sound there.
Yeah, like it's not meant to sound nice.
There you go.
You know, like it's not meant to be a performance to be enjoyed. You're not supposed to enjoy the performance. It's
an experience.
Yeah. It's supposed to creep you out, you know.
Okay.
And it's really funny because I'm doing it in this office. So like with everything around me, I know, with cute things around. So everything looks like really normal and I just look like a freak in the middle.
Even better that juxtaposition you have there, that elevates it to the next level. I think.
Yeah, it does make it more creepy.
Yeah.
It really does.
The unexpected.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun doing it. It was amazing. It was because this composer found out from, you know, listening to my streams, he found out that I really love weird music. So he's like, yes, you are the perfect candidate to play this crazy music that I just wrote. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, speaking of writing music for the flute, then, what would be some things you would want a composer to avoid?
I mean, essentially, these are like the frequent complaints, right, of flutists and piccoloists for new music. So, usually it has to do with range. So, some composers confuse the range of the flute with like a violin. But we can't go as low as a violin. The lowest we can go to is a low B if we have the foot joint. And not all flutes can go down to low B. You either have a C foot joint or you have a B foot joint. Now, C foot joints currently mostly show up in beginner flutes. Starting from like intermediate and step up flutes and up. Nowadays, you'll mostly find only B foot joints. So, but there was a time fairly recently, I would say in the last 15 to 20 years, a lot of step up and intermediate flutes actually had only a C foot joint. Professional flutes, since you can get them custom made, some people actually customize it so that it's actually only a C foot because they just don't play a lot of music that go all the way down to low B. And the extra weight of the B key can really offset, the balance of the flute when you hold it up. Yeah. So for people who are like smaller, shorter, and who never find themselves going down to low B, what's the point, right? So the problem arises when a composer doesn't know that, and they write things that go down to low B, where maybe the flute is playing it literally does not have that key on their flute, right? The biggest place where this happens, though, is piccolo music. So a lot of new composers have no idea that most piccolos only go down to low D. Oh. There's just straight up no foot joint. I have a special piccolo that goes all the way down to low B. So I guess I should actually go and grab it.
Did you customize it?
No, I didn't customize it. I actually I heard about it for a while. It's called a Nagahara Mini. And I bought it because it is cylindrical, not conical. Most piccolos are conical, meaning they're bigger at the head than they are at the foot. And I like the cylindrical idea because it makes it closer to the flute in terms of its behavior and its tuning. Okay. The tuning and behavior definitely matches a flute more. And for me, I find that I'm personally more comfortable switching between a flute and piccolo that like really feel close to each other. So some people don't agree with me, and that's completely fine because everyone's bodies are very different. So everyone kind of reacts to flutes and piccolos very, very differently from each other. But I find that I like the fact that it's cylindrical, and I wanted to future-proof myself. So I was like, well, this piccolo does go all the way down to low B, and I have played enough new music that I know that a lot of composers don't realize that piccolos most of the time do not go lower than a low D. So, this would actually allow me to play what they wrote, I have actually been able to do it a couple of times. Play a low C on a piccolo, and most people will be like, what the heck, like that you can't play a low C on a piccolo. It just doesn't exist. But I have a piccolo that can do it. It can go all the way down.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, do you want to see it? I can go grab it really quickly.
Yeah.
I just ran to get my piccolo. So here's my piccolo. You'll see that it doesn't go down very far, right? This key is called the D sharp key because it actually opens a key back here. So it causes you to play a D sharp, but if you leave it closed, then it's a D, right? So it only goes down to D. This is the other one that I bought. You see how much further down it goes?
Whoa, it's a lot longer.
It's a lot longer because you literally need extra length to go lower, right? So my D sharp key is right here, right? But now I have these extra keys. So 2 of the holes are on one side, and then the last hole is here. So they've engineered it so that it's easier on your pinky to navigate here. So it is actually a little bit different than how they do it on the flute. But honestly, I actually kind of like the way that they engineered this together. But yeah, basically this piccolo, the longer one, can play all the way down to low B. But the one on my right here, this one can only play down to low D. And this is the typical one that people have. I would say not that many people in the wider world of the flute own a Nagahara Mini. This is actually quite unusual. It's getting more and more popular, but it is still fairly unusual to have a piccolo that goes down to low B.
It looks a lot kind of thicker too, though.
Oh, quite a bit, yeah. Because this one, it's not tapered, right? This one is
Yeah.
cylindrical throughout the whole thing, whereas this one, you can actually see it gets quite thin at the bottom, right? You see that? That's a pretty crazy difference.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. So, you know, if you want a piccoloist to play down to low B, you got to make sure they actually have a piccolo to do it. And it's not cheap.
So it's always good to ask beforehand.
Yeah, you know, and when in doubt, just write down to low D. Like yeah, no. But anyway, that would be my biggest complaint. I don't want to take up all the time here. So what about you? What is your biggest complaint?
I think I have two that I can share, but one would go for maybe the both of us. Correct me if I'm wrong though. As instruments that have auxiliary instruments as well too. With flutes being more than bassoons.
Right.
We only have the regular bassoon and then the contrabassoon. For flutes, you guys have flute, piccolo, alto flute, bass flute.
Yep.
I would say for composers, it's just best to leave ample time to switch between instruments.
Oh my gosh,
because I have had music where it's like, should I cut out a few notes from the bassoon to switch to the contrabassoon safely?
Because
or should I miss the first few bars?
Yeah, because you have two giant stands for it, don't you?
But also we have to unhook our bassoon when we're sitting down.
Oh my God.
It's not a matter of putting it down. You have to unhook it.
Oh my.
Put it down. And then take the contrabassoon, which is on a very narrow peg for such a large instrument. And also, not because flutes, your head joint is on already.
Yeah, yeah.
For us, we have something called the reed that we won't put on the instrument when we're not playing. Just because if it falls or something, we can damage a reed. And if it's a good reed, we're going to cry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have my reed cases here. I can show you. This is my case that I usually pull from. This is a larger one that I have.
Oh my God.
And I'll try and show you the compartments inside. It's a little bit messy. I only have the... Pardon me.
Oh, cool.
So these are contrabassoon reeds and Baroque bassoon reeds. So there's a side for that. And then regular bassoon reeds, which I currently haven't filled in yet.
Right. Oh my
goodness.
They are
here.
Oh!
Yeah, but for us, we have to actually soak the reed, take it out from the soaking...
Cup?
Soaker?
Yeah.
Cup? Yeah. I swear I play bassoon. And then put it on the vocal. So that takes an extra few seconds as well, too. It's not just bam, bam, and then play.
Like, you can...
Right, it's read off, put instrument down, read on, take instrument to us.
Oh my... And hook it. And put your hands on the right place.
Yeah.
Like, we can, like, swing a fast switch if you have your instruments on your lap. So,
and then on the stand, I've seen.
Yeah, do not actually put it on the stand. No, that is so freaking dangerous. It's actually more... It's still dangerous, but it's not as dangerous to put it on your lap. You just have to make sure that you're sitting so that your legs are actually at a 90-degree angle so that it won't like roll off. Yeah. I have the problem of being short. So most chairs that I sit on, I am not at a 90-degree angle. So I end up having to like, if I have heels, then that's cool. But if I don't have heels, I literally have to be on my tippy toes. Like playing with the piccolo down there. So I play like this and I have to go, you know, like it's really terrifying because like for me, because I'm so short, putting my flute down and then picking this up, I have to make sure my flute's not rolling off my lap too. So it's horrible, but it's a lot safer to put it on your stand, kind of like what you guys have to do. It's a lot safer, but it takes longer.
Yes. We don't have a choice, unfortunately. We do have to.
Oh my God.
I don't understand. Some people have double stands.
Yeah.
But still, it's a stand that you have to use. It does take time. So please, give us the time that we need.
Some of
There have
those,
been few close calls.
oh yeah, definitely. Those fast switches can be really dangerous to your instruments. Like, some people will look at that kind of thing and be like, I don't care. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's not worth the price of my instruments
Yep.
to make that switch. So like, you either give it to someone completely different who is clearly not playing the part right before, right? Like split it out into separate parts, right? Or you're gonna have to just sacrifice a few notes.
Yep. It also depends on the tempo of the piece or the movement as well too, because even if you gave 10 bars, but the piece or the movement is felt in one,
Right.
those 10 bars go by in like 3 heartbeats.
Exactly. Like, you need to actually time how long it takes and like pretend that you are also taking a gigantic instrument up. You know, you know, and then right.
And
like
with colleagues next to you too, you can't go, oh, sorry, hit someone else.
Exactly. It's so true. Many a flutist has been whacked in the face by another flutist, you know. It's yeah, it's a pretty common occurrence. So yeah, give instruments and especially auxiliary instrumentalists extra time.
Yeah. That goes with the entire woodwind section, really.
It's so
And
true.
certain brass instruments too.
Like oboe and English horn,
Yeah.
clarinet, and there's E flat clarinet,
A clarinet,
A clarinet,
C clarinet,
right? Yep.
bass clarinet,
Yep.
contrabass clarinet.
It's too many. It's just too many. Oh my god.
So
yeah.
Just give us the time, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
My second complaint, if I can say, would be switching back and forth between clefs. It's fine to switch back and forth between clefs when needed to avoid excessive use of ledger lines.
Right. Yeah.
But for compositions that switch back and forth incessantly or bar after bar when it is not needed,
like at that point,
or
it's
going
like...
to treble clef.
Oh my god.
I mean, I play piano as well too. I can read treble clef no problem, but on the bassoon, it's a mind twister.
I mean, I play piano, so I can read bass clef. But if someone like, I have tried sight reading in bass clef on the flute, and it's like, I don't know why, but I can't really, I can't really do it. Like, if I were reading it on the piano, like, no problem. Yeah. But like, if I was doing it on the flute, like, obviously I'm, transposing like an octave or two higher, obviously, right? But like, I can read it, but it's just, like, it's so hard. Ugh.
Yeah.
So
it's gotten to the point sometimes where I actually have to write myself like letters.
Yeah, the letter names of the notes, right?
Yeah. Just to say, because sometimes the clef changes, the clefs are so small. I'm like, oh yeah, the clef change there.
Why?
And if it's so often, like, it's like, ooh.
Because the notes will look like they're all like around the same height.
Yeah.
Which, like, your brain would not process that contour as going higher or lower, Like, the contour of the actual notes themselves actually help with sight reading. Not just sight reading, but literally just reading, so you don't get confused. Oh my god. I would say that we have, it's weirdly the opposite problem, which is that composers always try to, like, not always, but a lot of the new ones, they try to be really nice, which I appreciate. But on the flute, we cannot read 8VA for crap. Like, like
You prefer ledger lines,
we
right?
prefer ledger lines. Like, all the way up to like high C, high D, like we're talking C7, D7, like really, really high. Like, we would actually rather, especially if it's with other notes, we'd rather it just be a bajillion ledger lines. Like, we're just so used to reading it that way. So like, for example, from what I can remember, there's like maybe only 1 or 2 instances of 8VA in like all of the French flute music that I have ever studied.
Okay.
All of it is just all ledger lines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like we get so used to reading ledger lines that when we are essentially told to transpose an octave higher, because the issue here is that all of the fingerings in the third register are different from the second register, but most of the fingerings of the second register are the same in the lower register. So we've essentially trained ourselves that when we see ledger lines, we relate them to third register fingerings. Whereas if we see notes that are written in the second register, in the middle register, we've trained our brains to be like, oh, it's these fingerings. Now, if you gave us second register notes, but told us to play it in the third register, they're completely different fingerings. So we're like,
Yeah.
what is that note? Right? Like
gear change, but without oil.
Yeah, that's how it feels. So like that, I think that's actually why we prefer ledger lines. So we appreciate the gesture of composers trying to be nice and writing it 8VA, but don't do that. Just give us all the ledger lines in the world. Only to
and
flutes.
then take them away for us.
Yeah. Only to flutes and piccolos. Give all the ledger lines in the world. But don't do that for anyone else, because apparently everyone else hates that.
I wonder about violinists though. Would they read in 8VA?
I don't know.
Ledger lines.
I have no idea. Because
be interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I would say that like we flutists like just take for granted reading in ledger lines. Like we just get so used to it that like you know you see 3 ledger lines, you're like, oh yeah, you know that's a wait, 3 ledger lines is an E. Yeah, E. Yeah. So high E, and then you know we just kind of like we're always counting in thirds with the lines like A C E G, A C E G B. You know, and we're like, like we just kind of like read like that. So you basically you pinpoint the main note of like the phrase, and you use that as your like reference. So anything up and down it, you're just basically counting from reference what that note is. You just get so used to doing that, you know, like
yeah. For us, it goes, of course, in a different way. Going up, we've got tenor clef that we can use, so no ledger lines, please. But going down, if you use tenor clef, our brain also goes like, huh? Because going downwards, we can read all the way, like using ledger lines to low B flat. And if you stick in a low A extension, you can play the low A.
Right.
We're okay with the ledger lines there because it's maximum like 2.
Right.
Or 3 with low A.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But minimal number of ledger lines for bassoons.
That's so like for me, it's such a brain twist to consider like what, because we don't go low enough that they would, you know, that you would ever use like, you know, alto clef or something for us, right? Like treble clef is literally the only thing the only range that our instrument plays. So for me, learning to read alto clef in theory class was so horrible. Like it literally was just counting. Like, you know, the point in the middle of the clef, like that point is C, right? So like for alto clef, the middle line is middle C, which really should be easier actually than treble clef. But oh my god, like I felt like every time it was like a math problem to me. Like I had to keep counting, like okay, which note is it?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Good times.
But yeah, those are my 2 points.
I love it.
As a bassoonist.
I mean, that was basically my second point too. Was the 8VA. Yeah. So I think it might be a good time to reveal a little something. Something that we wrote. We basically wrote it in completion.
We did. Should I share it?
Yes, please show everyone.
So back in the very first episode of this season, if you hadn't watched it, go check it out. We challenged ourselves to a little activity called composing.
Yeah.
What we came up with is I think a 5-second jingle for this podcast. In all its glory, handwritten glory.
Oh boy.
Here it is.
Oh my goodness, there it is.
So what we're about to hear now is what we've put together.
This is actually us playing.
Yeah.
To be fair, Carrie did most of the work. Every part that is not the flute is Carrie.
Oh, because I have the instruments at my disposal.
And the flute, that's me. And that's it. And then I slapped all the parts together and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a part you know how to do.
I mean, okay, I need to be transparent. Okay, guys. We didn't plan for this to be our final thing. We thought we would probably like do a few takes and stuff. But after, like, okay, I retimed like one little chord in I think it was one of the percussion instruments.
Okay.
I retimed it just by like 2 milliseconds or something like that. Okay, so there was some post-production in this. I'm just going to be clear, okay? There was a little bit of post-production, but it turned out so good that we're like, why would we do another take? Like, it's so good. Spoiler alert, it's really good. Okay, so.
Well, now you can be the judge.
Yes. So, shall we listen to it? I think we need to.
I'm going to switch over to
Fantastic.
my magical device here.
Wonderful. All right. Are you ready to play it?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. That's us!
It's just so cheery.
That's us! Oh, I think so too. It's so happy. I feel like it's a really good representation of us.
Yeah. And it's probably in our favorite key.
Yeah, it is.
E flat.
So I slapped it together. Basically the day you sent me your tracks. Because I was like, I was recording over top and I was just like, I'm the type of person who likes to hear like a somewhat put together part and hear what I'm playing on top of, right? Because I play more in tune that way. And like, I didn't want it to be like a solo, standalone track of me playing, because then I probably would not be playing in tune with you. Because the issue that I teach a lot of flutists is that because we're up on the top, it actually doesn't really matter what our tuning is, because even if we're correct, if we're not in tune with whoever is lower than we, the flutists, will sound out of tune. So I was like, okay, with this in mind, and especially because you're playing the piano and the bass, the bass part, so on bassoon, I was like, I need to make sure that I'm basically in just intonation, in pure intonation with you on the bassoon. So I was like, okay, I need to play with, Carrie's bassoon part. But I did notice that the piano part kind of filled in the cracks, right? Because right? So like, because it filled in the cracks, I was like, okay, so that part will help me like, or it filled in the chords. That's what it is. Yeah. So the piano part filled in the chords, so I could hear the chord more, so I could kind of hear where I fit in. And then right, it was the bassoon part that does the rhythmic bump, beam, bump, beam, right?
Parallel octaves.
Yeah. Parallel octaves. So, but like, because I could hear you filling in the beat and the piano part like filling in the chord, that was exactly what I needed. Then I was like, well, if I'm gonna do that anyway, I'll just slap the other like percussion parts in there too, So that's what I recorded on top of. So I could hear everything, and then my part would fit in really nicely, tuning wise, like just intonation wise, and also rhythmly it would fit in, because I would be able to actually like predict what was being played. And then so I intended on just sending Carrie my part, but I was like, sounds kind of cute together though, and I kind of like rebalanced the parts, because some parts were too loud and some parts were too soft, so I like rebalanced it really quickly, and then I sent it over to Carrie over WhatsApp, and I was like, here, like,
I was in disbelief when you sent it over there. I was like, no.
I kept listening to it over.
I was at work when you sent it, and I was like, 10 times again and again. I just think, is this us? Yeah. It's like it sounded like from a TV show.
Yeah, it does. And I was just like, what? We sound professional. We are professionals.
Yeah, what? Who don't compose.
I know. I
think we proved ourselves wrong there.
I think we did. I think we completely proved ourselves wrong. Like, I was thinking that it was not going to turn out like, I just didn't think it would turn out so professional sounding. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't think that it was going to be that cute. Like, I still can't stop listening to it.
And my percussion instruments were children's instruments. Being a former early childhood educator. Ding, ding, ding. And the wood blocks.
But it goes to show, if you know your stuff, you can make an instrument really out of anything.
I take that.
It's like at the bottom of it, it's good rhythm and good intonation. If you have those two things, you're pretty much set.
To be fair, I recorded with a metronome in my ear, though, so I had a click track.
Conductor, basically. You have to have a conductor for several parts. The conductor was the click track. That's why it was so easy to put together. I think there was like only one. Yeah, it was one of the percussion instruments. I just had to kind of like, and then it was like perfect. Yeah.
It's probably one of the bells, because I'm still not used to that delay.
Yeah, there's that was it. I had to move it up just a hair, because you probably pressed it right on time, but the delay in the sound. Yeah. See, that's another thing, guys, is the delay of the sound actually coming out. So for some instruments, you actually have to anticipate that. It's pretty rough.
Well, that's why you go through training.
Yep.
That's why you practice. That's why you rehearse.
Exactly. Right. There you go, guys. That's our little jingle. We did it. Hope you enjoy that jingle, because you are going to hear it a lot more after this.
Yeah. Let us know what you think.
Yes. All right. Well, that concludes today's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed what you heard. Well, I think it's time for our outro. Let's see if I remember everything this time. This time I remember that we have a website that I designed, and I clean forgot about the last time I did this outro, but it is letsplayitbyear.com. On there, you're going to find all of our episodes on there. It's split up by seasons, by opuses, in their own sections. So it's pretty easy to find what you want there. And we are also on the social medias. We're on Facebook, Let's Play It By Ear podcast. We're also on Twitter at @let_ear, though our full name is still Let's Play It By Ear podcast. And on Instagram, we're also at Let's Play It By Ear podcast. Exactly. To listen to us, if you are already here on YouTube, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. If you are listening, head on over to youtube.com/ I believe it is it for no just look up Let's Play by Ear podcast on YouTube.
And it will show you the different opuses too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So subscribe to us here over on YouTube, but we're also on, as Carrie is showing to the camera, we're also on anchor.fm/Let's Play by Ear dash podcast. And that actually distributes out to several different podcasting platforms. So I believe like Google is on there, and like Spotify is on there as well. So if you already have a platform that you listen to podcasts on, likely you can find us there too. So anchor.fm /Let's Play by Ear dash podcast. Awesome. You'll see which platforms it distributes to. Great. And did oh my God. See, I forgot something again. Well, if you want to contact us, share your story, all that good stuff, please email us at letsplaybyear.podcast@gmail.com. If anything in these episodes, like really, like you really related to and you want to share your story, we want to hear them. So please share them with us. Great. Okay. I still forgot one thing.
It's okay.
One of these days I'll get it right. Well, whatever. In any case, we shall see you guys in the next episode. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.